The thwarted cash-in-transit heist, which authorities succeeded in preventing literally at the final moment before millions of rand would have disappeared without trace into criminal networks, has just experienced a sudden, governmentally explosive development that even experienced investigators could scarcely comprehend or anticipate given the routine nature of such crimes. An occurrence which numerous individuals initially presumed was merely another brutal theft on the roadways of South Africa has now transformed into a controversy pointing disturbingly near to the supreme levels of administration, placing the African National Congress directly under examination and pulling President Cyril Ramaphosa's identity right into the center of a tempest that is improbable to subside anytime soon. The ramifications of this case are already being felt across political circles, causing nervousness among senior officials and triggering intense speculation about what else might be revealed. A sequence of circumstances was initiated when officers identified a questionable automobile trailing a money vehicle along one of the most congested pathways in the nation, a route known for high volumes of commercial traffic and previous security incidents. After weeks of elevated protection warnings and an increase in CIT assaults that had claimed several lives and resulted in substantial financial losses, the officers didn't hesitate a second. They advanced rapidly to compel the automobile off the highway and apprehend the suspects before even a bullet was discharged, demonstrating remarkable tactical precision. At first, this was an exemplary prevention, an uncommon triumph instance in the perpetual battle against armed theft organizations that have grown increasingly sophisticated and violent in recent years. But the genuine alarm commenced the instant investigators examined the suspects and discovered materials that generated immediate concern signals and raised fundamental questions about the nature of the operation. Communication records, encrypted messages, financial documents, and handwritten directives were among their possessions, none of which corresponded with behavioral patterns of criminal collectives notorious for executing CIT attacks with brutal efficiency. There was something distinct here, something far more structured, deliberate, and tactically designed than the typical opportunistic crime that law enforcement had become accustomed to encountering. The more SAPS investigators probed further into the proof, the more electronic forensics started to expose connections leading in orientations nobody anticipated, creating a complex web of associations that suggested coordination at levels far beyond ordinary criminal enterprise. Telephone digits discovered in the suspect's equipment led to encrypted communication platforms that were associated with persons with established connections to ANC frameworks, raising immediate questions about the intersection of politics and organized crime. Background verifications that were conducted on two of the individuals detained at the location saw investigators astonished to uncover that both had been formally engaged within civic departments under ANC governance, holding positions that would have given them access to sensitive information about security protocols and financial movements. Even more concerning was the disclosure that each of them had notably unblemished criminal histories despite previous intelligence documents connecting them to investigations that never appeared to advance to legal proceedings, suggesting possible intervention or protection from influential quarters. Senior police insiders privately acknowledged that for years there had been subdued rumors of governmental protection shielding particular persons from prosecution, but this was the initial occasion. Substantial electronic proof appeared to validate those doubts and provide concrete evidence of such arrangements. The most incriminating discoveries originated from an encrypted apparatus confiscated from one of the suspects, a sophisticated device that required specialized technical expertise to access. Within was a comprehensive record of monetary activity, dealings between international accounts registered under nameless entities in offshore jurisdictions and domestic intermediaries suspected to be political agents operating within South African borders. The sequences were recognizable to the investigators who had operated on graft investigations related to internal ANC confrontations and power struggles that have plagued the party for years. Multiple transaction signatures supposedly corresponded with accounts already identified in previous inquiries into the exploitation of governmental resources and dubious financial movements connected to individuals near President Ramaphosa's inner network, creating an uncomfortable proximity between the president and potentially criminal activities. According to a HAWKS informant who spoke on condition of anonymity due to fears for personal safety, this indicated not only alternative financing channels, but conceivably collaboration between governmental networks and structured criminality operating in coordinated fashion. More significant to the investigators, however, were records with designations suggesting that the material was confidential, not to be advanced without authorization from senior administration officials, indicating layers of bureaucratic protection built around sensitive information. For forensic specialists and investigators who had become familiar with exposing graft throughout their careers, this was exceptionally irregular and profoundly disturbing in application, suggesting institutional complicity rather than isolated incidents. After all, it signified that an individual of substantial power had apparently foreseen that the content might be exposed and had endeavored to limit who obtained the content, creating protocols designed to maintain secrecy. It was such indicators that kept reinforcing that influential personalities might have attempted or could still attempt to conceal the complete reality from public scrutiny and legal accountability. The inquiry now troubling investigators is as straightforward as it is perilously intricate. Why would a cash-in-transit operation be associated with governmental frameworks, specifically those connected to the governing organization that claims to fight corruption? Initial theories circulating within the HAWKS and being debated in confidential meetings are that the surge in CIT thefts in the recent years may not be attributable to criminal organizations alone operating independently. Rather, some of these assaults could be functioning as alternative income channels for internal governmental sections competing for dominance in the preparation to ballots, providing untraceable funding that circumvents legal donation channels and financial oversight mechanisms. As legitimate contribution pathways become more monitored and mechanisms of monetary supervision more rigorous following international pressure and domestic reform efforts, illegal operations may be occupying financing deficiencies for electoral war reserves, sectional conflicts, and allegiance construction networks that require substantial cash flows. Indications of such configurations have emerged from multiple informants who appeared in recent periods to declare that some ANC figures resort to criminal organizations during intervals when lawful financing becomes scarce or when factional battles require rapid mobilization of resources. They even stated that Ramaphosa was aware of these operations but did nothing to halt them because implementing measures would fracture delicate party coalitions that maintain his position of power, creating a situation where political survival trumps legal and ethical considerations. Whether this is accurate or a governmentally influenced assertion designed to undermine the president, even the charges themselves are escalating fury both from citizens demanding accountability and among governmental sections seeking political advantage. Resistance organizations did not squander any opportunity exploiting the disclosures for maximum political benefit. The most forceful declarations from both the DA and EFF demanded President Ramaphosa to withdraw while inquiries progress, maintaining that no figure who has their identity anywhere near structured criminal networks can continue in position without compromising the integrity of the office and the nation's democratic institutions. A senior police administrator supposedly cautioned behind private chambers during a confidential briefing that the proof gathered so far has the capability to initiate the largest graft inquiry since state seizure, potentially exposing networks of corruption that extend throughout multiple government departments. He characterized the governmental coercion to suppress the investigation as tremendous, more powerful than anything encountered even during the most disputed years of administration examination when powerful figures sought to protect themselves from accountability. The ANC is reported to be in a condition of alarm throughout its frameworks in governance, with panic spreading from provincial structures to national leadership. Crisis assemblies at Luthuli House have become more regular with intense discussions erupting on how the organization should manage the emergency without destroying itself in the process. There are those who believe the institution must separate itself completely from the suspects and permit a complete inquiry if the organization is to endure the occurrence and maintain any credibility with an increasingly skeptical electorate. Some dread that exposing everything may dismantle the ANC and permanently fragment the sections, destroying civilian confidence that has already been severely eroded by years of scandal and mismanagement. Internal discord is expanding, more acute by the day as more data seeps into the press through deliberate leaks and investigative journalism, amid cautions from governmental commentators that the controversy could result in extensive departures or reorganizations in the ANC governance structure that might fundamentally alter the party's direction. Meanwhile, President Ramaphosa has remained exceptionally quiet, maintaining a silence that many interpret as either strategic calculation or evidence of guilt. Although councillors near to him are documented to have pressed him to communicate publicly and reject any connection to the unfolding scandal, he has yet to accomplish so, leaving a vacuum that speculation and rumor are rapidly filling. This has made doubt even more profound and conjecture abundant that the emergency could intensify into a comprehensive leadership confrontation that threatens his presidency. Many South Africans are especially troubled by the president's unwillingness to elucidate his position on matters that directly affect public trust in government. Such a position by the president conveys the perception that he may be dominated by the forces of internal organization politics, or even hesitant about how much of the reality is about to surface through ongoing investigations. Citizens who once viewed Ramaphosa as a reformer capable of cleaning up corruption are now questioning whether he is part of the problem rather than the solution. Investigators persist their operation with renewed urgency, and there are substantial indications that more detentions, including elevated-ranking ones, may be approaching in the coming weeks. Forensic units are still examining information meticulously, cross-verifying monetary backgrounds across multiple jurisdictions, and following encrypted correspondence routes that span international borders and involve complex financial instruments. If the proof directs where initial discoveries suggest, the nation could soon confront a governmental upheaval quite dissimilar to anything in recent recollection, potentially triggering constitutional crises and institutional instability. At this juncture, the population waits nervously as a theft that never occurred becomes the catalyst for an exceptional disintegration of authority, graft, and concealed partnerships that have operated in shadows for years. What commenced with a collective of armed suspects on a crowded roadside has converted into an investigation capable of disturbing the foundations of administration and exposing the rot that many suspect has infected the highest levels of government. As fresh disclosures surface almost daily and coercion amplifies from opposition parties, civil society organizations, and an increasingly vocal public, one thing is progressively definite: President Ramaphosa's governmental difficulties are only commencing, and the consequences may modify South Africa's governmental terrain for years to arrive, potentially reshaping the political landscape in ways that will define the nation's trajectory for generations. The coming weeks will prove critical in determining whether democratic institutions can hold powerful figures accountable, or whether the culture of impunity will prevail once again.